Hello, welcome to another solo episode. I am loving this setup in my office. I feel very professional and like, oh my God, Renee, you have a YouTube channel. Anywho, I wanted to get some solo episodes recorded that if by chance we're sick one week, Milo's home all week, and I don't have a chance to do this big setup, I would like to have some episodes that are kind of like evergreen, which means they're not... What does that mean? It's like you can listen to them anytime, you know? It's not like I'm going to be talking about anything specific that's going on in my life right now because maybe this episode won't air till like October and right now it's September. So yeah, I asked you guys on Instagram what some topics are that you would want to hear about. Also, I have no idea what my lipstick looks like right now because I don't like podcasting with dry lips and my lips are like chronically dry. So I always have chapstick, but I put the dogs in their houses and so that they don't bark while I'm recording. They still might, but, put them in their houses and I came in my office, like closed the door, got all set up and I was like, oh my God, I don't have anything on my lips. So I got this PR package from Rare Beauty, which is the Selena Gomez line. And it was a ton of lipsticks, all different shades. And so I just pulled one out of the bag that I have and put it on. Like it looked a little bit brownish. So I don't know. Let me just like open up my camera on my phone. It's pretty like nudish, brownish. Anywho, I asked you guys on Instagram what you wanted to hear about, and so many of the topics had to do with marriage after kids and like relationship stuff with your romantic partner. So what I thought I would do is, you guys know I have recommended this book like crazy. It is called To Have and to Hold: Motherhood, Marriage, and the Modern Dilemma by Molly Millwood. She's a psychologist. It is every single chapter. I can't explain how much you will just be like nodding your head. Yup, totally. Oh yeah, fuck yeah. Like, it is literally my thoughts in a book. It's crazy. It's crazy. So she has some great chapters in there about marriage post kids. And I love it because she talks a little bit about her own situation. She has young kids. She talks about like clients that she works with because she works with a lot of women that have kids and, you know, have issues in their marriage and whatever. So it's just like there's lots of, then she talks about research and it's just all the things in one book. Every chapter is on a specific topic. And so I thought I would go over one of the chapters that talks about marriage. It's called The Great Divide and it's chapter 6. So I went through that chapter and I just like wrote basically Cole's notes and I was like, oh, I should just discuss, you know, these interesting factoids in the podcast. So if you don't have that book, highly recommend. I am reading it slowly because I like to make notes as I'm reading. This is why I never get nonfiction books on my Kindle, because I like to have the physical book to write notes on. So the chapter is called The Great Divide, and the very beginning of the chapter, she dives into why, and like I catch myself saying this all the time as well. But I do catch myself though, because I'm like, Renee, like, what are you saying? The word help. So many people refer to their partner helping them with childcare or helping them with household tasks, like domestic labor. And it should not even, when you say help, it implies that it's your job and they're going out of their way to help you. You know what I mean? It's like, so they should get a pat on the back because they're helping when they they don't have to. Like, it's not their responsibility. So I hate the word help. I also hate when people, let's say I make a TikTok and because I've wanted to do this, like, drives me nuts how my husband loads the dishwasher, which I feel like this is like a common marriage issue. But it just makes no sense. Like, have you ever passed the first level of Tetris? Because I don't think you have, judging by your dishwashing loading skills. So let's say I made a TikTok and it was complaining about the way my husband loads the dishwasher in a funny way, as I do. There would definitely be comments on that TikTok saying, "You're lucky your husband loads the dishwasher." And it's like, no, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm not lucky that he does it. They should just do it anyways. They use dishes. It's not like he eats out of the pot with his hands. So yeah, he should load the dishwasher every now and then. So I hate the word help. I am trying to refrain from using it because I catch myself saying it as well. And I hate the word, "You're lucky that this happens." Like, no, like, I don't like that. And it's like, "Oh, you're a woman. Like, your husband's helping you. You're so lucky." Like, no, like, get out of this narrative. I don't like it. Anywho, so the beginning of the chapter starts with that. And it's like, light bulb. And she makes the point, like, why is it that they are helping and they are not also in charge of what's going on? Because if somebody's helping, if you're having to delegate to them what's going on in the household, how to, like, what needs to be done with childcare, it's like, it's still all on you and you're having to manage now another person. So love that. Also, when the dynamic is such that, like, one person is in charge, let's say the mom, and then the husband, the partner, the dad is helping, it will create resentment in the relationship because the mom is like, why am I always in charge of everything? Like, why am I the one that's having to make the grocery list or, like, plan out meals or plan the birthday party and then delegate tasks? And then it's almost like it gets to the point where you're asking the person, like, "Oh, are you able to stop at, whatever store on the way home and pick up X, Y, and Z for the birthday party?" It's like, now you're having to ask favors when really it's like a joint effort and they should be just as involved. Speaking of resentment, hot topic, go back and listen to episode 67. It's like, I feel like that was so long ago. So it's with Tracy Dalgleish, Dr. Tracy Dalgleish, and it's all about resentment, and it's really good. Specifically, resentment in your romantic relationship. So moving on, the chapter, Molly talks about how husbands, and I'm talking about heterosexual relationships that have, where the people have kids, the men's lives, and, like, this is research, this is not me, like, making this up or Molly making this up. The men's lives are not as affected as the women's lives. And this starts, like, beginning in pregnancy. Another reason why resentment occurs in relationships after you have kids. The baby, and this is a quote, kind of a quote, "The baby does not occupy as much emotional or mental space for the father as it does the mother." I'm calling the baby it. So she points out that fatherhood is a big life transition, but when you look at it relative to the motherhood, like the transition for the mom, it is not nearly as big. And so she references this research study that was done at UC Berkeley, and it's basically an identity pie chart. So they had couples, heterosexual couples, create or draw out an identity pie chart. So what are the different facets of your identity and how much does each title or part of your life take up, like, what would you consider that? You know, like the pie chart, you know, you do like 70% mom, I'm 20% this. Okay, so they had couples do that when they were pregnant with their child. And right away, the women's parenting slice or mom slice was twice as big as the father's. And this was when they were pregnant. Now, fast forward to when that child is now 18 months old, and the dad's identity as a parent, they redid the pie chart, was less than 1/3 of the mom's. So it, like, the mom, and like people talk about identity as a mom all the time, and it's like motherhood kind of takes over and you lose other parts of yourself. So another interesting thing about the pie chart was that the father adding the father slice to his pie chart did not squeeze out other things. So like it just kind of stayed consistent. So they didn't like shrink down their, I'm like a friend, I'm a son, I'm a husband, and like the biggest part of the men's pie chart was usually what their job was, like career, like work was a massive slice of the pie. Whereas the women's other things, I'm going to use the word suffered, but got smaller and shrunk on the pie chart, and mom or being a parent took over. So she makes the point that whether women work full-time outside of the house or not, they still make significantly more lifestyle changes. And that mom piece of the identity pie chart is much bigger than the husband's. And so women tend to put creative pursuits on hold. Their friendships wane or suffer. Their career goals get abandoned because they have little mental and emotional energy left to put into these other things. And it made me also think about how like husbands are still like raring to go on like, yeah, let's like maintain our sex life and go out on dates and, you know, be this amazing, awesome couple that we used to be before kids, because they have the energy left to do that. Whereas women are kind of like, by the end of the day, I just want to shut down and not have any sensory stimulation coming my way, whether it be like touch, talking, whatever. So very interesting. Also, she put some stats in that chapter, and one of those stats is that for every hour a man spends doing domestic work, a woman does 3. Now, I know it's crazy. Before, it used to be for every hour that a man did, a woman did 5. So you would think like, oh, so it's getting better. Like, do women have more time now? We do not. Because with how parenting has changed over time, like let's say in the last 50 years, we do not have more time. Because any time that we might have been able to save, we are now like putting full force into childcare and like engaging with our children and interacting and like planning activities and taking them to the park and going to the zoo. And, you know, like parenting has definitely changed over time. So women are not doing less. They are more hands-on with childcare than ever. And these stats like blow my mind. So working moms spend only 10 fewer hours doing childcare than stay-at-home moms. Blows my mind. Working moms today spend as much time with their children as stay-at-home moms did in the 70s. And people, sorry, that was me with like the mind blown thing. People are like, they hear that stat and they're like, well, what the hell were moms in the 70s doing? And it's like, they were living their life, not being like so wrapped up in entertaining their child every moment of every day and planning activities and going here, doing this, enrichment. Like, and I'm not saying any one way is better than the other. Like, maybe what I think happened, which is what happens with everything in life, is like it started, like maybe it was over on this side in the 70s, and then it like the pendulum swung like way over here, and now we're like entertaining our kids 24/7. And I think eventually it needs to kind of get back into the middle, because I think moms are fucking burnt out and there's gotta be some middle ground here. So yeah, even me, like I was a child in the 90s. Like my mom was not entertaining us. We were playing with other kids. And like everything has just changed. Like they put terrible stuff on the news. We're like bombarded with terrible information. Everybody's fucking scared to let their kids go play, you know, in the neighborhood without supervision. Like you feel like you have to constantly be with your child, and it's like parents' lives and quality of life, I think, is suffering because we're so focused on entertaining our children and like doing the best thing at every given moment. Like, oh my God, did I react properly in that way? Like, let me go fucking read a book to see if I reacted properly and how I could best react, you know, the next time this happens. It's like, holy fuck, can we like tone it down a little bit? Okay. Another thing, okay, this was so interesting. So again, it's based on research, and I think it was also done in California. I feel like California is like taking the lead on all this kind of research, marriage and post kids and whatnot. So there's this thing called the myth of equality. Okay. So what it's basically saying is that so many couples like shout from the rooftops that they are like equal and it's 50-50, and you know they have very like an equal workload when it comes to childcare and house tasks, and you know, anyways, so yeah, myth of equality. So lots of couples, despite their egalitarian standards and the image that they portray of their relationship as being equal, their relationships were actually greatly imbalanced and favored the husband. Again, this is heterosexual couples. And this is so interesting because I feel like people are very defensive about their relationships. And instead of just being like, oh yeah, like this is something we could work on, or like, I'm always like, yeah, our family just kind of, or our relationship just took on this dynamic and we're going to try and make it better. Like, it's not perfect. Like nothing, it's not perfect. But so many people, when you question, and like maybe you shouldn't question other people's relationships, I don't know, but sometimes I do. And if you question it and you're like, oh, like your husband comes home from work and goes in the basement and plays video games for an hour, like when you've been home with little kids all day, like it's peculiar. But if you like confront someone or just like say like, oh, like that must be really hard on you, you know, maybe you guys could make a change or whatever. Like people will get defensive. They will be like in denial. And so the two big defense mechanisms that people use that Molly writes about in the book, and this was based on the research study, is denial and justification. Justifying why their partner has to do or does what they do. Like, oh, no. Like, he works so hard. Like, when he comes home, he has a blah, 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 blah. Like, it's always something. And instead, I wish people would like look at their situation and think of how it could be improved and not be afraid of confronting their partner and being like, look, like, you know, I'm having a hard time with X, Y, and Z, and, you know, maybe we can make some changes to try and make my life a little bit easier, because staying home with kids is not a goddamn vacation. So yeah, anyways, I thought that was really interesting that everybody wants to, you know, be portrayed as like, oh yeah, we're super equal and 50-50, but they're not. Like, when you actually look at the family dynamics and daily routines and how their family functions, it's not. So it's interesting, like, to take a look at, you know, how does your family function? It'd be worthwhile. Anyway, so it got me thinking about, like, what are some unconventional ways that our family functions, and then what are some conventional ways that our family functions. So many of you guys know my husband sleeps with the monitor. We sleep separate bedrooms, which, to be honest, is a luxury to be able to sleep separately. We have the space, we have the extra room. Sleeping by myself is like, I never want to live a life where I'm not sleeping by myself. And I never would have thought this until I had a child, because before having Milo, I was in control of my sleep. I could nap during the day. I could go to sleep early. I could relax all weekend, whatever. Once you have a child, sleep is no longer in your control. It's just not. So now sleep becomes almost like an obsession. Like, you want to get the best sleep every single night as much as possible. So for us, my husband, he doesn't even snore. It's like a throat breathing. I can't. So my husband sleeps in a separate room. It's glorious. I get a great sleep for the most part every night. He sleeps with the monitor because and this is one of these things where it's like, he was not as affected by having a child as I was, because when the monitor, like when Milo would make a sound in the monitor from his room, whether it's like he cries out briefly, my adrenaline is like through the roof. I'm wide awake for an hour or two, cannot fall back asleep, just waiting for him to make another noise. Like, oh my God, is he awake? My husband does not have that. Like, a sound can come from the monitor, and unless it's like a serious sound and it's consistent, he will not wake up. So he sleeps with the monitor because we sleep separately. We're able to do that. He does actual childcare. I think when people hear like 50-50 with regard to childcare, they think like, oh, they're just entertaining them. Like, he takes them in the backyard and plays soccer or something. No, like, he does actual childcare. He will make snacks. He will do the bath. He will pick up from school, drop off at school, all those things. He organized Milo being on the soccer team, did all the email correspondence with like the admin and the coaches. He's the one that registered Milo for kindergarten. He does doctor's appointments, like if Milo has to go get vaccines or whatever it might be. Because of COVID, usually one parent could only go in. It's always my husband, because he just handles things like that better than I do. He's a doctor. When Milo's sick, he is able to comfort him just as well, if not better, than I would. Milo is like very much a daddy's boy, especially right now. He's like in this phase, and I'm like, okay, fine with me. But yeah, he cooks. He does a lot of the cooking because I fucking hate cooking. It's like the bane of my existence. And maybe you're thinking, Renee, what the fuck do you do? I do most of the cleaning, 100%. Like cleaning, organizing closets, getting rid of stuff to donate, all that kind of stuff. Like setting up the house, decorating the house. And maybe you're like, what the fuck? That's not that important. But it is, okay? I'm the emotional one. I am like the one that will bring up all these conversations. I'm sure this is coming as a complete shock to everybody. Like, what? You talk? Yes, I'm the one that will bring up like any issues, like talk about our relationship, like how we can make this better. That's me. I am very much the person that's going to like be planning activities, planning like if we go to the zoo one day or whatever, like packing the diaper bag, making sure we have sunscreen, all that stuff. I'm also, when we travel, like will pack everything. And then, of course, I obviously cook some days. I'm like the grocery list person, like keeping track of what we have in the house, stuff like that. But it's very, like, I would say, I want to do this research study in California because I would say we're pretty 50-50. And like, there's certain things that each of us is better at. So we tend to take on those roles more than the other person, which I think is fine. Something, though, that she mentions in the book is that oftentimes we rationalize that one parent is like better at doing something than the other. And so the other never does it. And then it just becomes this like self-fulfilling prophecy. Is that the right word? Anyways, it's like, oh, my husband doesn't deal with the kids or like comfort the kids when they're sick because he's just not as good at it as I am. And it's like, well, yeah, because if he has never done it since day one, why would he be good at it? You know, it's like packing lunches or doing bath time and bedtime. A lot of people are like, well, my husband he doesn't know the routine, so I'm the one that tends to do it. And it's like, well, why doesn't he know the fucking routine? Like, why? My husband and I have been doing the bath time and bedtime routine together since day one. Obviously, there's nights where my husband's not here because he has to go to the hospital. So I do it by myself. But if I leave for like 3 days, my husband can do everything. So it's like when your partner is home, and I understand people have shift work and all that stuff, but like when they are home, what the fuck are they doing? Are they not involved? Because they should be able to do it by themselves. That's my like little rant on that. She also, oh yeah, well, I already kind of touched on this. The example from the book she gave about her client was worried about her partner not being there for early postpartum, like to be a proper support. And she was saying how like it was uncomfortable to kind of gently confront her about this and be like, you know, maybe you should seek support from other people because your partner will likely not, you know, do everything that is necessary or maybe that you're going to need in those early weeks. And she was just saying how it like felt awkward because people always want to defend their partner. And I was like, yeah, like I totally get that just from like encounters that I've had on TikTok and whatnot. Okay, let's check the timing on this episode. Oh boy, we're at 29 minutes. Okay. I'm going to record some more of these, obviously. But marriage post kids was a big topic people wanted to hear about. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you don't already have this book, go and get it. Again, it's called To Have and to Hold: Motherhood, Marriage, and the Modern Dilemma by Molly Millwood. Okay? Highly recommend. And yeah, more to come. If you haven't already, please rate, review, subscribe. Subscribe on YouTube. Like, hello, I got a freaking professional light in my office, okay? Yeah, we're taking over the world. So thank you so much for listening. And I hope your children sleep tonight and they don't make a noise in the monitor that sends your fucking cortisol through the roof. Okay? Okay, bye.